Hello, you. On today's show, we'll be taking you right back to the beginning of your moving to Spain process when it's just an idea in your head and asking, what can you do to prepare and plan for the whole experience? I'll be joined shortly on the virtual settee by our very good friend Chris from Upsticks.es to chat about that. And I have a surprise guest too, so stick around, ask questions, give us a wave, hit the like button, and get yourself a mention in the live chat or in the comments below. Now, gather round. It's time for our small but perfectly formed cosmic theme tune. Let's dance. Wasn't that groovy? Before I bring in Chris, I've got a delightful suggestion for you all very quickly. When we've answered your questions today, why not check out our website, YouTooSpain.com, where you can find tons of extra information, blog articles and resources that you need for your move to Spain and for living here. Just for those people who really like to read about these things and check the finer details, it's the perfect place. There's also a free newsletter every month that goes out on the 1st of every month, so sign up right now to get that. That doesn't cost you a penny. Speaking of which, all of the expert help you get from all of our platforms is absolutely free, but I'm sure you do appreciate the value of the information and the entertainment and the smile that you get from me and YouTooSpain and all of my guests. So you can make a donation via buymeacoffee.com /U2. Now, there's a few ways of doing that. Let me just put these up on the screen. You can either do it from that one there if you hover your phone over it, or let's just put the big one up on screen for now. So that one there, hover your phone over the QR code. There's also a link for it if you're not that tech savvy. If you go into the video description below where it says the name of the video and it says read more, there's a whole lot of links in that place that you can get to. If you are watching the video back afterwards, you can rewind to this point in the video and then you can use this QR code. There you go. So I'll take that one off the screen for now and get my name back up there. Also in the link below, there are all kinds of links to discounts on the vital services that you need. They're all tried and tested friendly companies that support YouTooSpain every time you use the links, and it doesn't cost you a penny. Get yourself a free account with Smart Currency Exchange. That's the one that I always advise. Do it well in advance of your trip, and that's very relevant to today's subject. You can speak to my favorite advisor for free. He's really lovely, and he's going to be on the show next week, actually, so you can chat to him live all about that. He can help you make the most of your money so that you're not at the whim of the exchange rates. It's a win-win-win-win-win with a cherry on top. Okay, so without further ado, it's time to meet my lovely guest for the day. It's Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Hola, good morning.
Buenos dias. Buenos dias. How are you doing today?
Yes, we're all good. Yeah, the sun is shining.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We've been having a bit of wind up in the mountains, but yeah, you need that to keep you cool, don't you?
You do, and the plants need it to spread their seeds apparently as well. That's what I got told this morning from one of the people I stopped and spoke to. So there you go. So it's good for the weeds.
Brilliant. I never thought we'd get spreading your seed onto the program, but that's really nice.
But I always do this. I get myself in trouble without even.
Fabulous.
So, to do it.
Have you got any shout outs for clients today?
Yeah, just the Thompson family. I wasn't, unfortunately, I was at the office yesterday, as you know, and I've come in this morning and I've seen that the Thompson family is starting a stage 2 of us. But obviously, they've got their visas now. And Jay, my colleague, is picking up them to get them registered here. So, and I know they watch your show. So, congratulations, guys.
Brilliant. So let's just see who's on the live chat. Maff, good morning, Maff, and Michael Franks, and they're having a conversation on there. And Bev, hello, good morning, Bev, and Ant and Cares from France. John McClue, someday soon. What's your name, someday soon? If you're prepared to give that one out. And the Wild Aroma Company. Hola. And yes, you sent me a question on the social media, and you told me that your name is going to be Wild Aroma, so we'll answer your question later. I've got some 3 questions from social media, and all of the questions that you've asked there, including one from Tracy Elford that was asked on the live chat before we went live today. We will answer that one later, Tracy, because we're actually going to be talking about that about halfway through the show. So we'll try and get to all of your questions. If we miss out any of those questions that you've asked early, then ask it later on during the show and we'll try and get to everybody. So let's get on with today's topic. It's all about planning, and that starts way back at the beginning of the process. It could be 1 or 2 years before you move. It could be even longer if you need to get an Irish passport, for example. That can take over 2 years if you go down the naturalization route. Actually, I've been looking back at videos that we made back in 2021, Chris, before I moved here, and Chris and I did a series of 4 videos all about the countdown to moving, and we started like 1 year or 2 years back. So to begin with, I think I'm going to share with you 1 or 2 things from the first of those videos when we were looking at long-term planning. It was really interesting to look back, and we'll compare that with what we know now from both of our points of view. So yeah. I remember you saying at the time, Chris, that you wanted to learn more about the experience of your clients because you only really get to see the process from a lot closer to the move, don't you?
We do. So we see it. I mean, we've been really lucky with obviously last year we did a place in the sun, and we engaged with quite a few people who are now just coming on board. You know, we've been engaged for a while, and it's really interesting how the difference experience we have with people who engage quite early, and we get information to maybe a little bit earlier, to the people who come straight in and we start straight away. You know, so it's but yeah, it's something that we constantly trying to get your heads into. Even more so, like, you know, we talk about it, don't we? Where we're using these terms and phrases and terminology that people who haven't been here before don't recognise it, and suddenly you're falling into that trap because you've been here 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's good.
And there's a quick lesson in what happened with me and Liz when we arrived. For us, before, 2 years before, it was like a series of huge life events that sort of collided like a perfect storm and set us on this path to changing our lives. There was my father passed away, and then I was put on medication for diabetes, so there was a sort of double sense of my own mortality going on, and that was a big kick up the backside to get healthy. And then right in the middle of that, the lockdown happened, which just added to it. And we were both self-employed with jobs that involved being with people. So work completely stopped for us, which a lot of people will recognize that happened to a lot of people. And that was for well over a year, as it turned out for us. But of course, nobody knew how long it was going to be, which left a huge feeling of uncertainty about the future. So we had a lot of time to think, a lot of time to examine our lives and see what we really wanted in our future. And losing weight was one of them. I lost a huge amount of weight, and so learned many lessons from that. And the lesson is you don't need a pandemic or some kind of epiphany to examine your future. Decide whether this is the right thing to do for you. Look ahead, imagine where you want to be in 10 years time, because it's a big thing to do. So there you go. How do you know what's right for you? What should you think about first? That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is. And well, you obviously had Brexit as well, in between all of that, which changed a lot. And I still think, there's 2 points there you raised. One thing is the lockdown and Brexit is still a big factor in people I speak to, is why they're making the decision now. You know, it is still very fresh and raw in people's heads. And as you say, looking at your 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan, you know. So, and I mean, look at the way that certain areas of Malaga have changed in the last 10 years. I was just saying, last night to Lara, we were talking about this exact subject. And the first time we were in Malaga City, and the first time we went out there together, had a meal, what it was like last night. Lucky I was enough to get out and have a meal with my wife, and it was like completely different. It was like, wow, this is a different demographic. So I suppose that affects where people are looking to buy as well. What will it be like in 10 years or live?
Yeah, it seems like quite a young and vibrant place now, Malaga, doesn't it? I don't know what it was like before.
It was a lot, say a lot more, I wouldn't say traditional, but now if you want to eat anywhere from off the Cayo Larios on a Friday, you have to book. You have to go really far afield to find something half decent. You forget it if you're if it's really hard. And I've never seen. It's quite funny because this is one comment that we made again from the UK to Spain. There's things that you notice when you're doing it. Last time I went to the UK, I went to a carvery restaurant and I noticed how everybody was just queuing without any complaining at all. Everybody just queued, very good at queuing. I'm going, this was Spain, people would be going mad because just queuing is really the thing that the Spanish do very well is queuing. You shout a lot at the bar if it's busy, but not queuing. And then, contrary to the fact, there's this really good tapas bar in Malaga called, am I allowed to say the name of it?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Called Casa Lola. There's actually two. And there's people queuing to get in quite nicely, quite calmly. And I'm not the best queuer patient myself. And I said, Lara laughed at me. But why? She said, look at you. You said that people don't queue in Spain. Look at this. That's lots of big changes. You wouldn't have seen that 13 years ago in Malaga.
Yeah. So looking at what part of Spain, how do you choose which part of Spain and why you want to move there?
Yeah, I mean, there's if you look at things like so Torrevieja, for example, I was up there last year, and Torrevieja it's hugely commercial. You want to see it, but I mean, the community it's massive. There's a massive British community there. Some people find comfort in that, and then that's other people's worst nightmare. So and then we've got, there is the one great thing that's happened to us since we've been doing the non-lucrative visa since Brexit is I've learned about so many towns I didn't even know existed in Spain. I'm like, I didn't know Arboledas existed before we started with the visas, and it turns out there's this fabulous community up there of people, which is same with Compita. When we came up to visit you in Compita at Christmas, and I've never seen the community like that. I didn't even know that existed, and seeing the English signs on some of the buildings and that, it was really strange for me being in this Pueblo Blanco, feeling focused on an expat community. So yeah, how do you decide what you want?
Yeah, that's true. All of the estate agents have got British writing, English writing on them, which is it just shows you. And it's not just people from England that are here, it's they're from all over the north of Europe, because that's the English is the main language that most of those people can speak.
Yeah, it's it's one of those. When I first came to Andalusia, myself and Lara, we chose Loja to live in. It was quite, again, it depends. I think you can look at the state of the economy, can't you, as well? So when we chose Loja at the time, it was before the big crash. So it was a relatively big town, 25,000 people. Sorry, Alarin's 50. Loja was at the time around 20. Quite an expat community. At the time I was working, translating and helping people way before we had the Upsticks on the website. So there was quite a lot of work to be had on a self-employed basis. And we thought, this is, we've come from the coast because we lived in the north on the coast. We thought this is a nice happy medium. We bought a house. Then, of course, we're relatively young at the time. The crash happened, and we were forced to move, to Malaga, because that's where the work was.
And there's no way of knowing what's going to happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years with the economy. Actually, although the cost of living here is still cheaper than the UK, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things like food in the supermarkets at the moment isn't that different from the price in the UK. Liz has been looking at all of that. So obviously alcohol is cheaper.
Yeah, thank goodness. But it is. So it's a case of how you position yourself. In terms of how you position yourself, isn't it? Looking at future proofing. We didn't ever think when we went to Loja that we would have to Upsticks, excuse the pun, and go to live in Malaga, and literally we left our house and everything there, and which, touch wood, I love the community there, and we've got some good friends, and we've still got our property there, which is rented out. It's great. We had a good time, but we always say if we'd have positioned ourselves in Malaga maybe straight away, then it might have been different.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to ask yourself questions like, can you stand the heat? Places like Loca, it's next to Granada. It can be quite bitterly cold compared to some parts of Spain in the winter, but it's one of the hottest places in the summer.
No, it is. It's great. So I again just talking to somebody yesterday, and they were asking about how we're getting on the coast and stuff, and I said, it's great. I said the weather's different. I said it's milder, not so cold in the winter, and not so warm in the summer. And they were like, well, I couldn't stand that. I like the frost in the morning in the winter. Here it gets a nice -3, and I get my scarf on, get out for a walk, and then in summer, it's a dry heat, so we just jump in the pool. It's not a problem. So some people, will see Malaga and the humidity here and wouldn't like it.
Yeah, very true. So how often do you need to go to Spain to find out? And if you just go in the summer, you're not going to get an idea of what it's like in the winter and maybe the spring and autumn. In some places like Loca, one of our friends said to me when we were staying up there that that was the autumn. He said, as we had 2 or 3 days of different weather before it turned to what was winter in Loca. And he said, right, that's the autumn over with. Now it's the winter season. And it just happened. Autumn was like just a few days long, and that was it.
Yeah.
Bang, you went into really cold November temperatures.
Yeah, I suppose it would be, if you could do, I mean, obviously this would be a massive luxury, but if you imagine you could do 8 trips, 1 in each season, 1 on the coast and 1 in the mountains, and you're going to see every extremity, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, if you go down to, what is it, Almeria, which has got all of the extremities, it's got mountains, it's got desert, and then it's got the sea, which is, and it's a lot damper there. It's a complete microclimate with just about everything there.
Yeah, and then Greg, talking about that, it's looking at your microclimates, isn't it? Like look at like the Almuñeca sort of area, and even here in Alarin, de la Torre, where we live, when I leave the house to go with the kids over to Della-Rumball, it's always 2 degrees cooler in Della-Rumball. Always. It's a microclimate from where we live to where the golf course is, and that's the golf course is actually built where it's built because of the demographic and how the land lies. So next to the mountain and stuff. But it's incredible. In 15 kilometers, we've always noticed it, 2 degrees difference.
Yeah, and you don't have to go that far to get up above the moisture cloud level to get into the drier part of Spain, where 20-25 minutes up the hill into the mountains, and we look down and have a giggle at the people on the coast who are experiencing the moisture when it's lovely and dry, maybe with a bit of a breeze up in the mountains. But of course, they can look up at us and laugh when we're getting the great big gusts of wind coming up the valleys and blowing everything down in the garden. So
there may be, just reminding me there about, there could be health things to look at. So funnily enough, I was talking to Antonio, the accountant, and his son had real problems with the humidity, breathing, and then he's okay with dry air. So was that a constant cough? So there could be things like that to look at as well. You don't know, do you?
Let's have a look, see if anybody's on the live chat there. There have been questions coming in, and I've not been watching. Maf has his first consultation with Upsticks this week. Really excited about the new chapter. Let's see. Experience we are having. No, don't understand that. Let's see. Terry Gibson. He's getting into the visa application with you, Chris. Can't wait until October. Till we move out permanently to our house in the hills above Tirana. Where's Tirana? Tirana. There we go. And Bev has decided on Corralejo in Fuerteventura. That's on the islands. Maf's moving to the Basque Country, so that's up near the French border. Mike Ripper says, when my wife moved to the UK 20 years ago, she couldn't get her head round queues. Just straight to the front with me going, no, look, there's a queue, and lots of Brits tutting quietly. Yeah, I've noticed that. It's only the Brits that go, Yay! Oi, there's a queue. That's shouting at all the Spaniards who just go straight to the front and just gather in a bunch there. David O'Reilly says, I'm Spanish and 49 years of age, thinking of moving to Spain permanently in 2025. Have a Master's of Fine Arts in Writing and a degree in English. Have no Spanish, but have been going to Nerja. Now, that's a lovely place. Very, very mixed community there. Lots of Brits. There's even a British supermarket.
Yeah, Nerja is one of those fabulous places, which is you can really go. So typical Spanish. That restaurant on the beach. We're talking about food, aren't we? But there's one called Ayo who does the massive paella, and it's so typical, you know, of how it's been, and it hasn't changed for years. And then you've got British supermarket, so you've got the best of both worlds, and it's in that microclimate close to Costa Tropical. Well, it's Costa del Sol, it's Costa Tropical, isn't it? Really.
It is, yeah, it's right, and it's kind of right on the border there. And also, it's full of. There's loads of Italian restaurants right there by the beach, by the hotel, and there's at least 3, maybe 4 Indian restaurants. Wow. So you've got all of that mixture of cuisine as well. Yeah, my mouth's watering. We should stop talking about food. He's going to try. David says he's going to try teaching and setting up his own business. Where do I find info on all the documents to get ready? Well, yeah, that's a self-employment visa that you need to be looking at there.
David, did you mention you had an Irish passport?
Let's see. He's not mentioned it. With a name like that, you should have an Irish passport, David. Have you? In which case, then you don't need a visa. Tell us about that. And Bev is from New Zealand, so love the wind. So that's why Fuerteventura suits us. Yeah, those islands are actually off the coast of Africa, aren't they? But they're part of Spain, and it's breezy, but you never get the cold temperatures, do you?
No, I think it's some people akin it to closer to Cadiz, don't they, where you get a lot of the winds down there as well.
Yeah, because it's on the Atlantic Ocean. It's one of the few places in Spain that's got that's on the Atlantic. It's that bit that sticks out at the bottom. There we go. Or Triana Velez Malaga. There we go. Pasty fingers? What does that mean? Pasty fingers. Terry Gibson says. Not sure what that means. David O'Reilly says, yes, Irish passport. Yes. He says, thanks, guys. Yeah, absolutely. You're in the right place there. So you can actually, I think the best thing to do, David, is to have a look in Spain. Come and visit a few different places and see where your business would be a good place to be. If you're teaching, I would say be in a city. Yeah.
Be one of the bigger places is quite hard, because with that kind of job, you think it's a big place, lots of people, but you need easy access wherever you're going to be executing your negocio, your business. So so people don't have to worry about parking. So it's getting that right, isn't it?
Yeah, like you're not actually in Malaga. You're kind of in the next bit, only 15 minutes out. So.
Yeah, that's it. You just right. It's really hard to find the happy medium where you're close to everything. People can find you, but they can still park.
Yeah, a lot of things to look at there. And yeah, what documents do you need, very briefly, for that, Chris?
For the self-employed, for an Irish. Yeah. So, well, the good thing is what we did with you, wasn't it? So you need to get your NIE first. That's the main thing, because it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. To get your residency off the back of self-employed, you can use your NIE number to register self-employed, and then that qualifies you to get your residency as an Irish person, and you can also then open your business. So obviously, to get the NIE number, you just need your passport, the application forms, taxes paid, and a reason to actually have the NIE number. You can then, I think you've got a good video about self-employment on here, haven't you, with accountants, so that's good. Check that out. And then obviously using the documents you receive from being self-employed, along with proof of where you're going to live, your Padron certificate, you register for residency.
There you go.
Something very important, very, very, very important to remember before registering as self-employed, and it's something that I wasn't too aware of until only this week, and it came up with Lara, my wife, was the incentives for people who, before they register as self-employed. There seems to be an awful lot this year happening, and there's one there for it's a €1,200 specifically aimed at women who are starting businesses. Actually, this one by the government, there's this sort of pot of money which is used to encourage people to do free courses and stay self-employed of different demographics. So it's worth, while you're doing your research before coming over, looking, if you're going to Andalusia, I don't know in other provinces what it's called, but I will do research on it. Look at CADE, CADI, which is an organization which will be able to help you set up your business and maybe find some sort of pre-funding even.
Yeah, cool. Tell us how you get on with everything, David. Stay in touch, and it'll be very interesting for a lot of the people who watch the channel, and also join in with the website, because that can be very helpful to get information out to people. In particular for you need to be not too remote, I think, which is something we talked about 2 years ago when we covered this subject. Make sure that you're, if you're not working, then you've got a bit more choice. You can be maybe a bit further out into the country, but make sure that you're near enough to a community, because you will need to be in touch with people. A lot of people move and they go, the dream is to be in a lovely house in a valley where there's nobody else and it's just completely peaceful. But just think about how maybe 10 years time, when you're a bit older and you might need a chemist to get your regular tablets or something like that. You might need access to doctors or a hospital, and you just need to think about those things well in advance, don't you?
You do. And this actually came into play, to say, during lockdown, when lockdown happened so quickly. I was talking to clients and friends and stuff, and making a few calls to get stuff delivered. And people who lived in urban nucleuses, as such, I think that's a correct terminology, were able to get stuff like that. We were literally even the small supermarkets had the right to deliver. And I was literally speaking to people like in Almuñeca. There's this really small mini market I know, and I know someone who lived there who couldn't get out. They weren't allowed out, and I said, look, let's just have to make a few calls. And we made a few calls, and they get delivered all their fruit and veg, motorbike. Whereas people in rural areas, that was so much more. That was harder, and that relates now today for people who are even maybe retired, but you still need to get the odd thing delivered. Well, it depends how far out you are. And certainly if you're running a business, looking at your support network of services which are provided, like here, for example, in our office, we have couriers come to the door, pick it up, and they'll deliver it to the UK in like 48 hours, or they'll deliver it anywhere in Spain. We have a massive sort of network of, because we have to, because we're running a business. I can't run out for a box of paper every time we need one. So there are those things to look at, isn't there, when you're choosing where to live?
Absolutely. Let's answer this one from John McClue. My son has an Irish passport due to both his grandparents being from Southern Ireland. I have no Irish passport. Would I be able to get residency due to my son having an Irish passport? How come you can't get one from? Is it that your parents aren't Irish? It's through the maternal line. Is that why you can't get an Irish passport? But you can't get an Irish passport the other way around. You can only get one if it's your father or grandfather or mother or grandmother. You can't get it the other way around, your descendants.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. There'd be a lot of people could do that. There we go. Right, I think before I move on to the questions from social media, I've got a treat for you all. A few days ago, I spoke to a British actress called Beth. She's quite a famous actress, actually, if you look up her name later on. And she's a very good friend of the organisation Age in Spain. Now, they have a really helpful new complete guide to moving to Spain that they've just released online. It's excellent. It's really thorough. It has everything to do with the subject of our show today. and it's got loads of handy information. Beth is featured in a video on the online guide, giving some of her top tips about planning and moving. And I recorded a lovely interview with her to play on today's show. So I'm going to hand you over for the next 5 to 7 minutes to my friend Skatz from a few days ago. Apologies for the video quality in a few places. It was atmospheric conditions interfered with it, but it sorts itself out after a few minutes. So see you shortly, and take it away, Skatz. Here we go. Hello, Beth. It's great to have you on the show.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Let's get straight into it. First of all, tell us a little bit about you and your move to Spain.
Okay, so I moved to Spain completely by accident. I was in my early 20s, to tour, and I came to Spain, absolutely loved it, and decided to stay. My mum was horrified, and my agent said that I would never work again. And it wasn't true. I did work again, and my mum got used to the idea. So it's just a fortuitous accident.
So let's talk about this new Age in Spain guide. How handy do you think it would have been in moving to Spain if you had had it back then?
Okay, well, John Rafferty, who's the president of Age in Spain, is going to be telling you all about this next Wednesday. So I don't want to give you any spoilers, but I think it would have been so useful. Really, I didn't have anything like that. And I found out things by trial and error. And it was fun, but of course, having a heads up would have been super helpful. So I think it's a great initiative. And I think it's going to be extremely helpful for people who are planning to make the move on a practical and also an emotional level, just feeling that you have something you can consult about all of those important questions.
Absolutely, and it's all of 156 pages as well. It's really thorough. It talks about planning ahead a lot. What do you think is the most important thing to know in advance?
Well, for me, it would have been helpful to know that it's not always sunny in Spain. So I Madrid, it was September, and I didn't pack a coat. I just thought, oh, I'm going to Spain, hooray! Shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops. And of course, the first week of November came, suddenly the temperatures plummeted. And yes, I should have packed a coat. And also, I think it's very important that people should plan long-term. So when you're moving to Spain, of course, you need to sort out the short-term details, but also think about where you're going to be sort of 5, 10, 20, even 50 years down the line, and sort of have a contingency plan for anything that might happen during that time. So in terms of accidents, in terms of getting older, in terms of what to happen when you can't work anymore, or you suddenly don't have the support that you thought you have, or you're not able to drive anymore, you're not able to do the things that you used to be able to do. What's your plan B? So
you gave loads of top tips on the video that's actually embedded in the guide. Can you give us top 5 tips for moving to Spain?
Oh, only 5, because I could keep you here all night. Okay, well, I think probably my most important tip would be learn Spanish. Of course, the panorama isn't the same now as it was 20 years ago when I moved to Spain. So people do speak English here, but not everybody and not very well. And you shouldn't expect people to. So first of all, top tip number 1, take some Spanish lessons. Take them before you go. Continue to practice when you're there. A little goes a long way. So if Spanish people can see that you're trying, they will come halfway to meet you and be delighted that you're making an effort. Whereas if you just sort of walk in and speak English, and if people don't understand you, speak louder, that's really not going to make you any friends, and it's possibly not going to get you very far if people don't understand you. So top tip number 2, work out your income and your expenditure in advance. So whether that's your pension, whether it's you're working, the two need to meet, and your income needs to be slightly higher. I mean, like Scrooge says, the man who has 1 penny more than his expenditure is a happy man, and the one that has 1 penny less is a miserable man. Work that out in advance, what you're going to be, what your expected income is. Make sure that you have enough left over to have some fun with. Things go horribly wrong if you don't have a job or a pension, or if you've not budgeted to suit your job and your pension, and that would be a sort of crash and burn short visit to Spain.
Number 3.
Get a gestor. This is a Spanish person who's a bit like an accountant, but who deals with Spanish paperwork. Spanish paperwork is horrible, even for Spanish people. So I've been living in Spain for 20 years. I am actually now Spanish. I have a Spanish DNI, which is your national identity document. I have a Spanish passport. I'm considered Spanish, and I find the paperwork impossible, and I have a professional person who does just that. Okay, number 4, get yourself a tight-knit community to support you, a community of friends. So make sure that near to where you're living, you have people who you know and they know you. Maybe other expats, maybe Spanish people, ideally a mix of the two, because if you're learning the language and you just need to cry on someone's shoulder, sometimes it's helpful if that person's a native speaker. But make sure that you have people you can fall back on, and people who will surround you. So if you're moving on your own and you're not moving with your family, make sure that you get to work making good, close friends. Last but not least, this is a kind of a practical one. I would say choose an area that's not too badly connected. Now, we all love rural Spain. I live in rural Spain. We're transmitting live from rural Spain. Rural Spain is gorgeous. The house prices are cheaper, and the countryside is absolutely beautiful. However, do think kind of practically about how close you are to a major city such as Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Sevilla, and also how easy it is for other people to come and see you and for you to get to other cultural events. Because if you're living in sort of some lost village in the mountains, again, you're going to be in more trouble if you don't have mobility. And also it's harder for people to come and see you, so they won't do it. And it'll be harder for you to kind of get to grips with the cultural life. So things like theatre, opera, concerts, maybe events in English, until your Spanish is good enough to be able to enjoy events in Spanish. Cinema even, there's an English speaking cinema in Madrid, but not maybe in some village in the middle of nowhere.
Excellent, really, really good top tips. You know, when my wife and I moved here, we had a car breakdown and all kinds of trouble ensued from that. It goes kind of like a snowball effect. Did anything unusual or funny or ridiculous happen to you in the whole process?
I could fill an entire book of ridiculous things that happened to me when I first moved to Spain. Of course, this was before the time of Google Translate. It was before the time of being able to get to grips with, get to know other people on expat groups. Possibly my most funny anecdotes are to do with learning the language. So Spanish is a wonderful and complex language, and there are a few words which are similar to each other, and I had a couple of occasions where I asked for the wrong thing. One was in a butcher's, and I wanted to ask for chicken, which in Spanish is pollo, Pollo. Now, this exactly the same word, but with an A on the end, is a very rude word in Spanish. It's
yes.
I'm not going to say what it is. You can look it up yourself in a dictionary. But that's what I asked for in the butcher's, and everybody fell about laughing at my expense. And then I went home and looked at the dictionary and went, So yes, but don't be afraid to make mistakes learning the language. People laugh with you, not at you. And of course, you do need to make mistakes when you're learning, but don't make those ones.
Well, I would love to talk to you for much, much longer, but our time is up for this little spot on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, and good luck to everybody. I hope you enjoy next Wednesday with Chan Rafferty, and good luck with your move to Spain.
Fabulous. So let's all go back to Skatz live in the studio. I've always wanted to say that. Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.
Hello. Whoops. There we go. I nearly played it again. Thank you, Skatz from the past, and thank you, Beth. So that Age in Spain guide, let me just share that on the screen so you can see what it looks like. It looks exactly like that. That's the front page of it. And there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of information there. So there you go. I'll leave the link below to where you can find that. But if you go to ageinspain.com, I think it is. Anyway, I'll leave the link below. There we go. So
fabulous guide, isn't it? With all the click-throughs as well. I mean, you could be. That's a good bit of research and material. There it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And as like both mentioned, I'm going to be interviewing John from Age in Spain for the next Wednesday's show. Actually, normally I don't do live shows on a Wednesday, but it's going to be recorded like a live show. And the main theme of that is it's still possible to move to Spain. That's what Age in Spain has been talking about. And with the right attitude and planning, it's important to realize that it's not just for people who are old, and it's not just for people from the UK, although it does talk about moving from the UK quite a lot because of the difference since Brexit, because of needing visas. There you go. So what are we up to now? What I'm talking about? I've got learn Spanish as my next point, but I think Beth covered that one. Finances. finance
You have to be
is the
really,
next bit.
really, really good at Spanish if you want to use swear words in Spanish. That's the only thing I would say. So if you do, it's the most horrific things when you hear somebody using a swear word out of context. So don't, although you should never use swear words in your life anyway, if you do, and you do use them in Spanish, make sure you're extremely good before you do so.
That's true, yes. I've heard that if you understand Spanish enough, Spanish people swear just as much as Irish people swear, which is quite a lot. Even the school teachers swear in schools, I noticed, which was a bit of a surprise to me.
They do, and a lot of this is why I mention it, is because a lot of Spanish learning, and I'm a big believer in this, is us being essentially parrots. So if you get out and you listen to people around you, you'll then, use the context of what people are saying in your own context. But a lot of time, what people are saying, if you use it, then it's not quite right, because you'd have to really be able to weed out what you need to learn when listening to people. Especially, and also that applies to the accent as well. Obviously, here we've got a very strong Andalusian dialect, and myself, if I get tired or lazy, I sort of fall into my parrot mode of using the dialects that I've been listening to for all these years, where really I should be putting myself up a little bit and trying to make sure that I pronounce my words properly, because they are locals. I'm not, so you have to be careful you don't fall into the swearing and dialect trap when you're learning out and about.
Yes, indeed. David Welkin has a question. Morning, guys. Another chicken and egg question for you. If you wish to set up a B&B business, which comes first, the application for the visa or applying for licenses, etc., to operate a Casa Rural?
Well, very good. Now you can actually have, now we say we don't do the work visas, but if you're talking about third country national, what I do know is that they could have the business plan in place before you actually apply for those licenses, believe it or not, but you would have to have everything in place, literally ready to hit the button if you're granted the visa. So I have spoken to somebody who's done this. Sadly, we don't support them at the moment.
So yes. And let's see, Math says, is there a checklist PDF for all the things I need to get the non-lucrative visa? I guess it's all about timings. There isn't a PDF, and I'm sure a lot of people would think that would be a really good idea, but it's different for everybody, isn't it, Chris? Some of the things change around depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, so I mean, initially, if people ask that, what we would do is we would refer them to the first of all, you got your consulate. Each consulate has its own little checklist of what you need, and then basically what we do, depending on the consulate, is we dissect that and help people with the relevant content. You've evidently, and we always talk about this with residency, don't we? Where you're always going to need, your healthcare and your money. That's the two big things, and everything around, that, and somewhere to live. So it's healthcare, money, somewhere to live, and everything else, depending on who you are, where you're going, and your passport is changes. It depends.
Yes, indeed. Oh, David was saying, just to clarify, do you need the business plan as part of the visa application?
Yes. Yeah. And it has to be approved by a registered authority here in Spain as well.
Yes. And Robbo says, he's asking, now considering retiring at the end of next April 2024 instead of 25, at what point should I start the NLV application? Before my retirement date or from the day I retire?
Very good question. Now that depends on how you're going to be proving that you've retired at the consulate. It's a conversation I had this week, actually, because at the consulate, believe it or not, you have these sort of things which always affect the date that you're going to book your appointment. And one of the biggest things at the moment seems to be a P45. Now, the UK consulates are requesting P45, so people who have been in a job to prove they're no longer working. On some extremities, they've even asked for people with P45, so slightly younger, to also provide notarized declarations, or they call them in Spanish manifestaciones, believe it or not, that in front of a notary that you're not working. So, but the P45, if you're employed, is a big thing, because everything else can be managed and kept within the time scale, time-sensitive documents, which last for 90 days. It's up to you how you manage those documents. So you would say 6 weeks before is a good time to start your estimated appointment date, because then you've got a 6 week back end period. If anything goes wrong, you need to push it back. But if you're not going to get your P45 until the 1st of May, then, you know, you, for example, you need to be basing your estimated appointment date on the 1st of May. So you need to be sure when you're going to get your proof you're not working, you're still at work.
Great advice. Thanks, Chris. And John McClue says, I'm in Campasol in the Murcia region. Can you tell me if the funds I need are lower or higher for this region?
If it's a non-lucrative visa, then it's a national. It's the same. So it relates back to EPRIM we've spoken about.
Yeah, he's talking about, yes, for non-lucrative visa funds in the bank. Yeah, it's the same across Spain. And there's a very
EPRIM video.
Yes. Yeah, we have a very good video, which is called What Money Do You Need for the Non-Lucrative Visa, I think. But if you can't find it, then ask me and I'll give you the link to that in the comments below. So let's get on to the questions from social media very quickly, and we'll get through these ones. We've got one from Jean Beans, which is my favorite name of the week. And it is, let's put it up on the screen first. She says she'll be applying for an NIE number at the Spanish Embassy in London. If I don't have any supporting documents such as rental agreement, what documents can I bring with me? She's saying, isn't it a catch-22 scenario, as you need an NIE to rent or buy a property, but yet those are the supporting documents for an NIE? It's not, though. Chris, you explain that one.
Yeah, not necessarily. So the NIE is just, shall we say, it's your tax, an ID number in Spain. So to get an NIE without actually applying for residency, as we know, when you apply for residency and you haven't got an NIE, then an NIE number will be automatically assigned to you. But if you haven't got an NIE and you need one to do anything, because it's very fair, non-resident in Spain, or to start your journey in Spain, like we were talking before about I can't remember his name now, registering as self-employed, then, but you don't have to have, shall we say, a rental contract in place to get the NIE number. You literally just need a reason to have one, the relevant application forms. So yeah, you don't. It's not really chicken and egg in sense of that you have to have a rental contract in place to get your NIE number. It is maybe chicken and egg, you know, if like we were saying about people who are coming with EU passports who want to register self-employed, they've got to get the NIE number first before they can register self-employed. But you don't need a rental contract yet.
There we go. Excellent. And the next question is from Cousins Davina Antoinette, which is another lovely name. We've got all the amazing names on today. So this is an interesting one. I'm a single mother of 7, she says, looking to move to Spain. I've been seeing so many different answers to what is needed to move. What would be the best visa if I'm not buying a home? I can't afford to leave every 90 days. So how would I get past that? We'll come on to the second part of the question afterwards. What do you say to that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, obviously, what passport you hold and what you intend to do here. If you're intending just not to work, then evidently, I think the biggest thing here would be the amount of money that you need for that. I think I calculated it. Did we calculate earlier on? I'll take it off.
Yeah, we did. We say it. So it's 4. If it's the non-lucrative visa, then it's 4 times EPREM for her, and then another 7 times EPREM for the 7 children, which is 11 times 600 a month, which was, you worked out the total annual amount, didn't you?
Annually, it's 79,200, and then divided by 12, yeah, it's 6.5 grand, well, 6,600 a month that you would need to support the family. So on a non-lucrative visa, you would need a lot of money if you're planning on working in passive income or savings to support a family of 7.
And if you can't afford to leave every 90 days at the moment, it would be logical to assume that you're not going to be able to afford 6.5 grand a month. But I hope you find a way of doing that. Let us know if you're watching, if there's any more information we need.
Yeah, and even on an EU platform, if you had an Irish passport and you were coming in, you would still need quite a bit because they still look at the dependents on the main applicant.
So last bit of her question is also there seem to be some places in Spain that will pay you to move there. How true is that? We were talking about this before the show, weren't we?
Yeah, you're educating me, so I'm intrigued because I have seen this on, I can't remember what website it was, but I don't actually see that much social media, believe it or not. Always got my head in work, and you were saying that there are places like rural communities which are offering incentives for people to go. I know my colleague Jane as well, she's mentioned this as well. I can't say I've read anything specific.
Let's just put up the search from social media. Here we go. That's the one. That's what you get if you search on Google. So there you go. Ponga in Asturias, Almeida de la Cuesta. So there's one in Cuenca, one in Pontevedra, one in Orense, one in Teruel. So yeah, there seem to be these villages, but the admin of the Facebook group on which that question was asked is saying, yes, there are those kind of places. Let's just read what she said there. And they are rural, they're generally in the middle of nowhere, and you have to be able to contribute to the local economy. For example, start a business, offer jobs in the area. And so it's not just about, being able to buy a house for €1 or be even offered a grant to go there. It's an ongoing situation, and you have to be able to prove that you're contributing. But it's very interesting, isn't it?
It is, and it goes back to what I was saying about the self-employed. I mean, there isn't, you don't get an out for out as such, but you can. There are certain situations, where there are grants available, and on the self-employment, for example, where if the boot fits and you have to stay self-employed for 3 years, you can get money. And I'm assuming that these villages as well would have, it would have a sort of a parameter of you'd probably have to live there 3 years and employ one person constantly for 3 years or something like that. I mean, how that's controlled, I don't know, but it'd be very interesting to look at. I'm certainly intrigued.
Me too. And let's get the final question from social media, which is Karen Green is saying, similar question, when is the best time to apply for NIE from the UK for myself and 19-year-old son who will be studying in Spain? They've got UK passports, but the husband has an EU passport. Hurrah. Also, will our son need a student visa, or will his dad's EU passport be sufficient? That's an interesting one, because normally you can only get a dependent person if they're under 18, but if they're studying, if they're at university, then you can still count them as a dependent, can't you, Chris?
Yeah. So the EU passport gives access to the whole family there as long as the paperwork positioned correctly, and they'll all get NIE numbers assigned when they make their application for residency if they haven't previously got one off the back of the EU passport. The only thing I'd say is if a 19-year-old son needs an NIE number, maybe to sign up for a course before, while the residency is going through, because you can do that, then they may have to get an NIE number beforehand, at the consulate. But being a student and going to study, and if you've got access, one of the things that you'll see on the NLV information, it says you get this if you do not have access to an EU platform, for example. So going to a consulate and saying, my father is an EU citizen, will be going to Spain and requesting an NIE number for a student visa is a very valid reason to get one.
So it strikes me that he would have to be signed on to a course before they
not necessarily on an EU platform. Now the thing is, they do look under if the son is financially dependent on the father and the parents, and he's under 21, then you should be still okay for residency. It's over 21s really that aren't financially dependent, which you've got no chance of getting an EU dependency residency.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have to be signed onto the course to prove that he was a student and therefore be okay as an under 21 rather than under 18.
No, you can, you would have to provide the financials though, just to prove that, he's a dependent on it. But we've done that before for a 19-year-old who hasn't been signed up for a course. Evidently, being signed up to the course does help. Yeah, that helps. So each of these, every case is individually assessed. That's why people do ask for like PDFs of what the exact requirements are, but everybody's case is slightly different. And I would say certainly submitting the residency for the non-EU citizens, if you've got a course already signed up for and proof of that, that would definitely be a bonus for the application.
Brilliant. And Math is saying, if you're self-employed, then I guess I get in touch with the HMRC and tell them I have retired. We were talking about that before, right at the beginning of the program, weren't we?
Yeah. So you have to provide proof that you've actually signed off. Now, the consulates are asking for if you use an accountant, they're asking for a letter from the actual accountant proving the date that the accountant signs you off, and then a letter from HMRC to say when you signed off. You can actually get a work history from your government gateway as well. And we recently had one for a client who went to Edinburgh, and Edinburgh responded to an email, and they said to us, right, okay, if you give the work history and they call it social security, it's what is it in England? So not social security payments,
national insurance
contributions, and this person already had a private pension coming in, albeit they weren't of state pension age, and they accepted it. Actually, well, they accepted it. It's going through at the moment. We don't have to go to ask for more. For the initial appointment, they said we need private pension proof and the contributions when you stop paying your national insurance. And for the initial appointment, they accepted it. So watch this space.
Great. Some of the other questions I was going to ask would be about if you have a house in the UK and you're going to sell it, how do you do timing on that? And Michael Franks has just asked, hi, are you exempt capital gains if you're over 65? That's one of the things you need to look at.
Yeah, definitely. Again, always take tax advice, but the general advice is, the fiscal year starts in January, ends in December here in Spain. If you spend more than 183 days in Spain during that fiscal year, then and you've got a great tax video here that I've seen, then you become a fiscal resident, and you could be liable for things like capital gains. Obviously, in some circumstances, people over 65 aren't, but definitely have that checked out. And something very important to remember is, don't forget that once you take residency in Spain, if you then have your residency, I got asked this the other day, and then you decide to go back to the UK, say for a month, which you're allowed to do if you've got residency, as long as you don't overstay the time out of Spain, that month still counts as you living in Spain now, because you've already got your residency. That's the most important thing. So, you've got to make sure that once you've got your residency in your hand, whether you spend time out of Spain or not, that's going to count towards your tax year.
And that's relevant if you're retired. I've got the right word in my head. If you're self-employed or employed, you start being a tax resident the minute you register as employed or self-employed. So you're paying taxes then, and you're a tax resident. Is that right?
Yeah. So as soon as you start, you're. We talk about the Declaración de la Renta, don't we, people? It's a good idea. Even people, I think it's a good idea, even if you don't meet the minimum. A lot of people are living off of savings for a few years before things kick in, and don't actually have to declare because they've not got an income which requires you to do so. But I don't think it's a problem actually doing the Declaración, because you can do, and keeping your paperwork clean, and it helps in the future. So.
I waited until after the end of the year that I moved there to actually register as self-employed. I mean, it happened to be that my EU residency card didn't come through until January anyway, so it wasn't worth me doing that, and I wasn't working, I wasn't getting any money coming in, so it was the right thing to do. But if I'd registered for self-employed right at the time when we arrived, I would have ended up paying fees and starting off the first year's worth of social security payments, and therefore those payments start going up earlier in the future. So okay, Does this is a very good question, and one which has been an issue of debate actually online. Does the 183 days include any holidays that you've had that same year as you become tax resident? So if you've been on, if you come to Spain to look in January, February, March, whatever, and the answer
my
is
understanding it does.
Yeah, my understanding too, and I've read the law on that. I'm not a legal expert, but my understanding is that it does count for any days you've spent that year. There are people who say no, it's not holidays, and it would take a lot of time to go through the courts if they were going to try and prove it. And so, how do they police that? No.
Yeah, it comes back to what we were saying about preparing and looking at your timeline, because it's so hard. And I have these conversations all the time. People are desperate to come, and you're saying you've got to wait another month. That in that month is huge for a lot of people. They've got big plans. A lot of people have waited their whole lives to action the plans, which they're actually doing now. So when you say to somebody, "Oh, you can't come for a month," it's devastating. But you got to look at the bigger picture. When you're doing your planning, or it might seem devastating that you've just had to put your funds back 2 months, but then in 10 years' time, you won't be thinking of those 2 months, as long as you get it right at the beginning. But it is, it's understandable. We could be very flippant when we say, "Oh no, you actually can't come until October because of the time you spent," and it could be devastating for some people.
Yeah, good answer there. Now, do you have to go soon, Chris? We've been on for an hour.
Yeah, I could do with as long as I shoot off around 10 past, so we can whiz through these. I'm just looking at your notes here. So yeah, very, very good today. I've got the notes open and everything.
Brilliant. Yeah. What else?
We can whiz through these if you like, and then I'll have to shoot off, I'm afraid.
Yeah, actually, Tracy Elford asked a question, and I said I was going to cover this one about bringing furniture. This is a very good point. When you sell up and when you're about to move, and far in advance, it's a really good idea to have a look at what you're going to be carrying, because obviously the removals is a big amount. You can pay thousands and thousands for removals. So is it a good idea to pare down what you've got? Just take the absolute necessities, and do you need to take electrical goods with you? What's the best idea?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things there. One thing is, make sure whoever you're using to import your goods, you speak to them about the paperwork you need to have in place before they go through customs, because that's going to affect your timeline. Okay, so you may, a lot of times people just need a padron to prove that the things are coming through for change of residence. But, each customs, don't forget that customs are different. They're very much like the Foreign Office is. So our main experience of this is with the cars. So when people are bringing their cars tax-free, when we go to customs in Malaga, we use an agent actually who does the customs in Malaga. It's different to when we go to Murcia. Murcia are a little bit flippant about the stuff you need, whereas Malaga are starting to ask for things like, can we have 2 years worth of council tax bills from where you previously lived? Or we've had a client who sold up, lived in a motorhome, did everything they had to do for their capital gains, and then can't provide any other documentation, other than the fact they've actually got residency in Spain. We got it through in the end, but it was hard work. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, obviously, now, again, how Spain has changed. Years ago, people used to bring all their white goods and their TVs because they were so much cheaper in the UK. And now, even me, we were recently looking at a new telly, because our telly is now 12 years old. And I was thinking, well, it might be a good idea now to get another one. And I just couldn't believe, I was flabbergasted at the prices. I can remember when we bought this TV 12 years ago on over 24 payments on the Never Never. It was like the biggest commitment we made for a 42-inch TV. Now you go to big supermarkets and triple the size are just, comparable or cheaper to the UK. So you'd never want to drag one over.
No. Yeah, I've got my monitor screen is actually the telly that I had back in the UK before we even moved to Ireland. So this one this is ancient, and it's a flat screen one, LED, LCD. It's still brilliant. It's still, so I'm hoping that's going to last a long time as a monitor. But the one that's in the house that we rented, it's another 10 inches wider than this one. So and probably was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I'd even get recent experiences. I can't say as I've been TV shopping, you know, that much, but we haven't bought one yet. We're just doing the initial research and around the big supermarkets. And I said, is it really that much? Is that monthly or is that, but they're cheap? They're cheap.
Yeah. So think about if you're moving pets as well, the drive down. If you a lot of people will not want to send their pets in an aeroplane, as luggage, if you like, because I wouldn't have sent our pets that way. So we had to, and when we were moving from Ireland as well, there's only one ferry from Ireland, and you've got to go, if you live in Kerry, you've got to go right the way across the bottom of Ireland to get to the other side, on the same coast as Dublin, and then you've got to get the ferry all the way down to Spain. And they don't run all year, so we had to book about 6 months in advance. There's only a certain number of pet cabins that you can get, and it was just after the lockdown as well, so people were rushing to do their move as soon as they possibly could. And fortunately, I'd already booked a cabin 6 months before in anticipation. So
and obviously your hotels on the way down, you're going to make sure that when you stop, you're allowed to take your pets in.
Yeah, make sure your car doesn't break down so you can reach the hotel when you're on the way. That's my advice. If you can manage to stop that happening. So yeah, things that you might want to take with you or that might not want to take with you. Think about the Spanish home that you're moving to. Are these things going to fit? You might find that bedding, for example, beds are a different size in Spain, and so you can't get the bedding for them. There are maybe some English shops where you can, but more expensive. So it might be best just not to bring any beds at all. Just buy them in Spain. And things just might not fit the decor in your Spanish home. You'd be surprised. And if you're renting a house, all of the stuff will be there, which means you're going to have to spend out for storage. Lots of things to consider.
Yeah, certainly with personal items. I mean, I think people are generally bringing a lot less now. That's what we see. Not, I can't say I don't see people's actual trailers, but from what people tell me, they're bringing a lot less. Yes,
it'll be interesting. I have been trying to get a removals company on the show now for over a year. Every time I write to them, and some of them have said yes, of course, we'll come on the show, and then they just do not get back to me to do a date. I'm pushing all the time and getting in touch with loads and loads of companies to try and do that, but nobody seems to want to go ahead. I think they're all just really, really busy, and I don't think they need the business.
Because your pets one was very good, wasn't it? I can't, just off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the guy, but that was really good, informative. We learned a lot from that. Yeah,
and he's got really, really busy. He used to be able to take 20 pets in his vehicle at a time, but since Brexit, from the UK, you can only take 5 actual pets. He can take 20 if they're being transported to a pet sanctuary or something like that, from one in the UK to one in Spain. But if it's private pets owned by private people, then it's only 5 now. So he's even more busy than he was before.
Wow.
There you go.
We got people to that video. It's very good. I like that one.
Yeah. So any more viewer questions? Ask them very quickly, or just put them in the YouTube comments below and you'll get the answers and help you need. Don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe, and click on the bell if you haven't already, and you'll be the first to know what's coming up each week on the live shows and the midweek videos. In a moment, I'll tell you who's on the show next week, but before that, Chris has got to go, so let's give him a big virtual hug and a kiss. And thanks for being wonderful as usual. We'll see you in 2 weeks when we'll talk about something equally fun and vital for our viewers. We'll decide that over the coming week then.
Brilliant.
There we go. Thanks, Chris. Bye for now.
Bye.
So, on next week's show, I've already mentioned this, I'll be talking at last to my very lovely currency broker, Jack Wiggs from Smart Currency Exchange, all about how to get the best out of your broker. And I'll be relating my own experience of what happened to me in the lead up to moving. It's all about advanced preparation again. That's also very important. And don't forget about the Wednesday video when I will be talking to John, the boss of Age in Spain, and get into a lot more detail about their moving to Spain online brochure, booklet, guide, whatever you call it. So why not ask your questions in advance on our YouTooSpain Facebook group? Do that right now. Let's just have a look on the live chat, see if there's any more messages. Paul Cook says, I plan to move to Spain in 2 years. Is it worth having a chat email to Chris so I can make plans well in advance, as I would like to use Upsticks services? Absolutely. I'd say yes. It's worth doing that planning in advance. So yeah, from all of the things that we've talked on this show, a lot of things well in advance, it's a good idea. Chris might say probably a year in advance in terms of the documents. That might be the good time for a first call, but I don't think he's going to complain if you talk to him earlier than that. Barry from Unitech says, did you not do a show with a removal company a while back? I did. That was 2 years ago, before I moved, and it was with the company that we actually used, and it's a little bit out of date now. So I want to get a really up-to-date look, because especially moving things from the UK or moving things from the USA even, there's a lot you need to know, and people are actually worried about the documentation and whether they have to pay customs and all that kind of thing. So I want to get all of those details on the show, because that's what people are asking on social media. Elaine says we want to move by this time next year, and we're coming to Ciudad Cacera in June to look around the area for properties. Very nice. Thanks for all your videos, she says. Thank you to everybody on the chat today. Don't forget to hover yourself over this donate thing in the corner and send me a coffee. We'll see you next Saturday morning at the regular time of 9 o'clock in the morning if you're in the UK or Ireland or the Canary Islands, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain or Central Europe. I'll let you work it out for whichever time zone you're in. That's all for this week. Someone pass around, I can't even say this, get some new teeth, Skatz. Someone pass around the planning cookies. Peace and love to you all. Oh, let's have one more cosmic little dance. Actually, I've got a new little ending bit, which is, it sounds like it's a bit loud, so you might have to turn down again at the end. I've got some characters from the video to say goodbye. So everybody get ready for this. See you next time. Bye, lads. Bye. Goodbye. Toodaloo. Peace and love. Peas and fluff. Oi, oi. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. One more cosmic dance? All right, then. Look, Mum, I'm dancing. Oh, I'm all a quiver. Let's dance.